Now we've looked at the spelling and the grammar, there are a number of other tools that we can look at. First of all, let's have a look at the Thesaurus. The Thesaurus you might be very familiar with. What you might want to do is find words that essentially mean the same, but perhaps you've used the word Thesaurus a number of times. So let's just close down the research. Let's just now open up Thesaurus. You'll see the research tab automatically comes up. That's because the Thesaurus is actually part of the research functionality. Let's have a look at this. Perhaps I want to get a different word for techniques. I can right click on that and then I can come for synonyms. And I could perhaps choose and replace it with the word methods, systems. Or what I can do is I can come up here and I can search and I get the same list here, but then from clicking on practices I can then search for practices, and perhaps then clicking for follows, I can then search for follows, and then surveys. And so you really can get a very distinct different words by using the Thesaurus, and perhaps if you're not happy with the initial choice, then clicking on one of those choices might take you to a word that actually is of use. Other areas you can actually come to is translate and language, and again this is all part of the research. The idea of this research functionality is if perhaps I wanted to research rather than a thesaurus but a translation, or perhaps you can also add perhaps the internet searches on here as well. So you could highlight a certain area and go onto the internet and find information, perhaps reference to medical journals or things like that. The important thing, whatever you must do, is you must add those particular research options. If you come down to the bottom right, let's add one now. So at the moment, what we're going to do is we're going to add the translation, because even though we have the translation there, it doesn't have as many options as we'd like. So we're going to click Add Services, and I'm going to paste in the Microsoft Translator URL. Now this is something that I've just searched on the web, so if you want to find any other research options, have a look on the internet. When Microsoft Word 2010 came out, the intent that there would be a lot more options here. And in fact, as times progressed and people are using the internet more and more, this functionality has actually been reduced somewhat. For example, you used to be able to have the Encarta Cyclopedia, but now this has been withdrawn. But nevertheless, we do have this translator, so let's click Add. We must have an internet connection, and it's going to go and get the information. And then now we're going to go through the Microsoft Translator, and I'm going to click Continue. And now what I can do is I can choose which one of these I'd like to install. Click Install. And then those particular services that you have selected would then be added successfully. So that's how you would update various translation options. And now you can see that if I perhaps hover a certain area, I can come up here, and in the Translate, I've actually selected the mini translator. And I've chosen the translation language of French. You can change that, of course, here. What that means now is if I highlight over this and then just move, I've got a bilingual dictionary. For example, if I have the word have in French, you can see that it's from the word je suis, I have. So now I have a bilingual language. And all of this is thanks to this research and reference functionality. Have a play around with it and see if it's going to be of use to yourself. Finally, in this video, what we're going to do is we're just going to finish off this area here. So we've looked at the translation and the language. We've looked at the research. We've looked at the thesaurus. They're one of the same. And in the previous video, we looked at the spelling and grammar. A useful one now is this word count. If I click on this, I can find out the number of pages, the number of words, and the number of characters. With this small document, this might not be of use, but remember, if you're doing an essay where you have to submit a certain number of words or a certain number of pages, this sort of word count is very useful. So there we go, proofing and language within the Review tab. Give it a go.